Hey guys, I'm a Gaming Potato, and welcome back to episode 8 of my series Blueprints by Design, featuring Factorio. So, we are currently starting our Megabase, and for today's blueprints, I have the beginning infrastructure for said Megabase. So if you look here, we're going with a city block design. You can see in the middle here, I have a bare city block infrastructure. We have drone ports, power poles, as well as a radar. And then beside me, we have the same thing with a concrete foundation installed on it. So I have two blueprints for this city block. And before we go into those blueprints, I have reorganized my blueprint setup as my blueprints were getting quite massive. So now I have the regular usage blueprints all here, but then I also have my starter base blueprints for when you're just starting a fresh game, as well as my mega base blueprints here as well. So in this case, we want our mega base blueprints. So you can see we have our single grid here. So this is a 100 by 100 grid blueprint. And when you tile these side by side, you can see they do snap to the grid. This will connect all of the roboports together to produce one large logistics network. But then I also have the super grid, which is just a 2 by 2 grid. So it's 4 of those 100 tile grids side by side. And there is also in the middle here a radar as well. So that's good. Once you have cleared out a large area, you can plop down a bunch of these. Something I like to do as well is I'll go to my map here, and what I'll do is I'll plop down just the one individual grids. So I'll go here, plop down my single grids wherever I can. See, there's a couple gaps there. And then once I have most of these areas covered, then what I'll do is I'll go back into here. I'll grab my super grid, and I'll just go over some of the areas I've previously done, and that will place down the radar in that area. The reason I don't do that right away is you can see some of these areas right there, there's a tree trunk hiding there somewhere. So some of those areas may not be able to get full coverage. So I can kind of go off to the side here. You can see there's objects in the way of some of those areas there. So by going with a single tile grid, I can expand the grid outwards and hopefully avoid the areas where there is tree trunks or rocks or whatever. And then once the logistics network has coverage there, I can then grab a deconstruction planner and I can just deconstruct any debris. Like you can see right here, there's a lot of debris. I can just grab all of that, get rid of it, then lay down the 2 by 2 grid on top of that. And that'll give me my radar coverage as well. Then once you've got this once you've got your grid down, you can see I've got a bunch of grid here just out in the barren waste right now, as we don't have our concrete foundation yet. But of course you need massive amounts of concrete for this. This city block grid is a 100 by 100 tile grid, which means you need 10,000 concrete just to build a single one of these city blocks. And of course, we need a ton of that. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is get that concrete. So over here, we're going with just our standard concrete. This is a blueprint I've made. It is tileable as well, so you can see you can just tile as many of them as you want. And then I have my inputs here. This is a pretty good size. You can get 6 lines within your city block here. Only a single line of raw iron is required. And then we have the stone bricks coming in for each of the lines as well. And I should mention, one stone brick line will cover 3 of these facilities. And then up here we just got some water coming in as well. And then we have all of that being piped into boxes for our chests to get. But I also have some of these lines you can see actually coming out here, and they are being transferred over here to produce refined concrete, as well as the, what do they call this? Refined hazard concrete. So here I have the refined concrete, and it's basically the same blueprint. Uses less water, but you can see I have my steel, concrete, and my iron rods coming in. And then some of it is being turned into hazard concrete so that I can get this walkway right here. And of course you can build as many of these as you want. If you just want refined concrete for your whole base, then you can just build a couple more of these, and you can just cover your entire base with the refined concrete. Well, notice here I am using blue belts as well. So if we go over here, probably even before you actually do your concrete, you'll want to get blue logistics. So I have a blueprint here. You can see all we do is we feed in iron and of course some lubricant, and we get our blue belts, undergrounds, and splitters as well. And then we are droning in green and red circuits for this. And you can tile these, so I've built 3 of these in a row, given each one a belt of iron. Now I should mention as well, the blueprint for this actually has red belts, because of course you don't have your blue belts to make them yet. So you can start off with your red belts here, and once the system is running, then you can replace these with blue belts to get even more throughput out of them. So this is actually probably where you'll want to start. First, you can start with just your bare city block grid like this. Then in one of those grids, you can place a couple of these to get your blue logistics down. Once you got your blue logistics, then you can start getting your concrete and your refined concrete. And then you're on the way to actually really getting your infrastructure going, because now you can move very fast as well. You'll see I actually have a ton of exoskeletons in right now, so I'm very fast. You'll see I'm pretty quick off here, but then as soon as I hit that concrete, it ramps up drastically. But then once you've done that, you've got your city blocks ready to go, you've got your logistics ready as well. You're then going to want to move on to getting heavier into your drones, as you'll need massive amounts of drones to actually place the tiles for all this concrete. So for that, I just made a very simple drone port here. You can fill these with drones from the mall, as I have that blueprint in a previous episode. May as well just go to it right here. I got this blueprint producing logistics and construction drones, which are then being sent into storage up here. So you can grab a few thousand of those, pump them into here. You can see I've got almost 10,000 construction drones here and almost 3,000 logistics drones. With quantities like that, you can then plop down massive quantities of these city blocks. So why don't we just open up our blueprint book here. We'll find the concrete outline, and we'll just plop a couple of these down right there. You'll see my drones are now starting to come out in mass. And they will start by collecting concrete. And you can see now they're starting to build the city blocks. And we can see the construction drones in use is drastically climbing. We've got about 4,000 drones in use right now. And that's just going to keep ramping up as more of them are coming out of hiding. You can see them splitting off over here. So with that many drones, now it's much easier to actually produce these city blocks that we need. And the city blocks are a great aesthetic as well. I also decided to go with a 100 by 100 grid like this, as this is what some of the other Megabasers use. And that's nice because that means most of their blueprints can also be filled into these areas, which is pretty nice. Because most people are probably using other blueprints as well, so this makes sure that other people's blueprints should work with this same city block style. So now I can see our drones are really out in mass for that. The nice thing too with these city block styles, you have your pathway here, is the blue underground belts are perfectly long enough to bridge right across this gap, which means you should never have to have any belts crossing your sacred path, as Nihilus would call it. So that's pretty nice. And then over here we've got all our refined concrete and the hazard concrete. We can see the drones picking that up as well. our nice bot logistics area there. And then finally, once you reach the scale where you have thousands and thousands of drones, you're going to want yourself a really good storage area. So this is where all the drones can store resources when they don't actually need them. So for example, my personal logistics is set up here. So if there's stuff I don't need, like say these level 2 assembly machines, I can just dump those into trash, and then their drones are starting to take that trash away, and they will place it in this storage area. Now this is very large. There are 1.6 thousand storage chests here. And I did that so really you just need to build one of these. And this should hopefully last you the entirety of your game. And if you need to, you can just plop down another one of these somewhere else. Or maybe you could just hit this with a nuke, destroy it all, and just put some fresh boxes in there. But I did put a bit of refined concrete and hazard concrete around it just to give it a little bit more style as well. So now with these blueprints down, we basically have all the infrastructure we need to start really getting the mega base in order. You can see we're now starting to fill out these city blocks. I can also come in here, grab my super grid, and I can just go along here and I can fill these voids. And this will add radars to these areas. You can see I can hit these edges here now as well. Of course, some of these areas you can see there are dead trees and rocks and stuff in the way. But eventually we will have this all filled out and more of this ready for expansion. You can see I do have a couple more blueprints down here. I think I'm going to save those for next episode. Because next episode we'll actually start getting into science and circuits and really actually getting to the manufacturing side of the mega base. But yeah, you can see the mega base is looking really good now. The city block is really nice. Resources are clean, everything's spread out, which is nice rather than having everything cram packed in like I do up here. You know, there's not much space between stuff. It can be hard to kind of pick things out. So we should have a much cleaner base moving forward now. Alright, if you enjoy my content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll have more episodes for you soon. Alright, thanks. Bye.